my wife bought a book and we read it together. It was, I can't remember the exact one, but it was a book about Buddhist studies. And so basically as time had gone on, kind of living in parallel and also winding around each other is this kind of this idea of kind of Buddhist studies and glass. So that's kind of, at the core, that's where my style of glass comes from. That's kind of what I do, is trying to bring the two together. And you'll see what I mean by that in the demo that I'm going to do. The style that I do, other than that, if you just kind of look at my work, it has kind of a watery or organic sort of look. I mean, I'm heavily influenced by the beach. You know, I didn't really grow up around a beach, but I think that just kind of, you know, that's kind of what tends to lighten me up. I think developing it, I guess, on two ways. One would be to get to the point where I'm actually selling it. But as far as a form, is I want to be able to increase the complexity of the kind of the Buddhist techniques that I use, both in relation to the techniques themselves and also as far as the complexity of the glass that I do. And right now, the work that I do is relatively simple, and to some extent that's a good thing. I mean, if you look at it on a kind of a Zen side, you know, the simplicity is everything. And then there are other Buddhist pathways that have very long, complex meditations. And so I'm kind of figuring out where I am in that mix. I don't, there's a certain path that I've taken on both fronts, but where I'll end up exactly in the end, I don't know. So within the Oregon community, glass community, I think I'm involved in a number of different ways. I'm a member of the Oregon Glass Guild, just started this year, and I did a show up in Portland, the annual glass show. I also am involved in a local art guild in Corvallis that's involved with the Oregon State University Craft Center, and that's kind of really where I got my start in getting involved in a larger community. Started with them and then went to the Oregon Glass Guild. Also at the Oregon State University, I teach some classes. One of them's just a very quick one-day intro to get people comfortable with glass, and then I also teach a marble workshop as well. And also I competed last year in the Eugene Flame Off, and even before I had a studio at home, and basically from the time, even before I think took any glass classes, I'd gone down to the Flame Off and really enjoyed that. And so it's one of those events, or the Flame Off events is one of those things that it's a real, talk about community. The shows are nice, but everybody kind of has their own little realm that they're looking over. But the Flame Offs are something that's, it's really kind of more of an open source event, and those are really nice. And what I'm going to do today is a section from the Heart Sutra, and I'm not going to go into it too much. It's a relatively short sutra that's relatively popular throughout the world. It's it derived, of course, probably from in India, and then from there it has spread out into the different branches of Hinduism and Buddhism. And the essence of it, basically, of like so many other things Buddhist, has to do with kind of having the ability to generate compassion on kind of a local level and then expand that out on a much wider branch. And the mantra I have today is the way that I interpret it, the way that I deal with it. I'll just say the mantra. The style that I've been going with is based on the path that I've been kind of followed or presented to follow, and it's a Mahayana Buddhist path. It's the one that I'm going to talk about a little bit. And the mantra is Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhisvaha. And so there are going to be times during the demo that I'm going to be saying this, but oftentimes it's just a matter of that I'll I kind of internalize it. And what that means, so gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. And that's and so that means gone, gone, gone beyond, gone way beyond. And then the last part, a lot of different interpretation, but basically the short answer is, find enlightenment. That's the bodhisvaha. There's lots of interpretations, but basically there's this progression where you're going far, you're going way beyond it, and all of a sudden you find the source of enlightenment. And the way that I'm going to do it today is basically start with the motivation of compassion. You could start kind of just with who you have in your family, and then if you want to continue it and you get better at it, you can try to conceptualize, because you don't have the ability to see all 11 billion people on the planet, let alone all how many ever trillion beings there are on the planet. You just kind of have to you can conceptualize the earth, and then just have compassion for that model of the earth. But my interpretation of the gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha kind of is like a journey between form and emptiness, and that's going to take part in the way that I do this art form, which in the essence is a stone. I've kind of settled on the name mandela stone because of the nature of the geometric patterns in it. The ones I'm going to do today are going to be pretty simple, and you're more than welcome to try it out and do whatever patterns you want on it. So I'm only going to do a kind of a simple wrap and rake form, and I'm only going to do use three rakes in each direction. And the reason I use 3 in this particular case is that the foundations for Buddhism are Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and so each of those 3 points represent that. So it's kind of representational. And so my form is kind of a meditation in it, or the creation of the form is a meditation in itself, and then the hope is that maybe this form will help to kind of bring that meditative atmosphere into whoever owns it. I fiddle with the flame a lot. It's just, I'm a fiddler. I can't help it. There we go. I can't, people. So okay, so first, since this is it's a process of kind of understanding the relationship between form and emptiness. And so right now, you look and there's emptiness. There's nothing existing in front of the flame. So this is the first part where we're going to have a little semi-form where the flame itself is going to fill the space. So right now you're concentrating on form, okay? And I'm going to take time to do the mantra every once in a while, and you can just add it in as much as you want. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to heat the end up here on a 16 millimeter rod. Just like the first 1.5 inches, 2 inches. And I'm just getting one side hot. Gate, samgate, bodhisvaha. I'm very much not a good singer, so. Gate, samgate, bodhisvaha. So I'm just going to get that. This is probably a spot for a still coming up. So get it flattened just a little bit. And at this point, you want to pick up a silver-rich color. I'm going to use, this is a Manka Purple Thunder piece. I think it's one of their light purple thunders. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the Tibetan symbol for Om, okay? For the letter for Om. And you can do whatever you want. I could talk more about why that's a letter, but what you wanted to concentrate is on the fact that there's silver in here, and that silver, when you say the word silver, you think of a solid, you think of the metal, right? You think of a coin. And so we're thinking about solid. And so gatte, paragatte, parasamgatte, bodhisvaha. And also on the back, in this particular form that I do, I'm going to draw 6 dots, each of the syllables, each of the parts of the mantra. So, gatte, gatte, paragatte, parasamgatte, bodhisvaha. 6mm, I'm going to encase this. So, concentrate still on form. So now I'm going to add, this is, I think it's called Blue Stardust. It's from Troutman. The key on this is to have a transparent with sparkle in it. And again, what you're concentrating on is the fact that there's little bits of chromium in here. So, again, solid. Gatte, gatte, paragatte, parasamgatte, bodhisvaha. Just one stripe should do it. If you want, you can add a couple smaller stripes to the side. Try that one just for the hell of it. So you can melt that in a little bit. Gatte, gatte, paragatte, parasamgatte, bodhisvaha. If you make a mistake in a mantra, it's not a big deal. So I'm just melting this in a little bit. I don't, kind of on purpose, actually I'm not completely melted again. What I'm going to do now is fold it over. You do want the face to be pretty squishy. So punch it up on one end. So now we have form basically from the silver color and from the transparent sparkle. Now, what you want to do here is you want to get it pretty hot. If you want, you could marver out the sides. You can see how there's a little bit of an indent, and if you don't really hate bubbles, if you really don't like bubbles, then go ahead and get rid of that. Otherwise, just keep this whole and get it really hot. And so this is one of those stages where you don't want to twist it, you want to maintain its integrity. But you want to get it really hot, but not to the point where it drips off. And so now what you do is you're going to, think about the mantra, gatte, gatte, paragatte, parasamgatte, bodhisvaha. Say it a couple times maybe, or at least think about it. Gatte, gatte, paragatte, parasamgatte, bodhisvaha. And at this point, basically you're going to twist, and this is where form becomes emptiness. All of that silver, all of that sparkle, you're twisting up and you're dispersing it. And so what was form is now the nature of emptiness. The next few steps are going to hang on to the kind of this idea of emptiness. And even though obviously there's a form of a ball in front of you, you just want to maintain your focus on emptiness of how the transition occurred on the inside. So shape it up into a ball. I'm going to do some simple wrap and rake technique here. You can see the inside of it. I don't know if you can see what's going on there, but so I'm going to stick with a golden, with the golden theme here. I had light Chinese amber in the middle that I twisted in, and here I'm going to have some dark, or medium actually, medium Chinese amber. This is going to be a pretty simple pattern. And then I'm going to have some light Chinese amber. You're still maintaining some focus on emptiness. So obviously, because there's a flame in front of you, you don't want to lose focus on that. Gatte, parasam, gatte, bodhi, swaha. Alright. I'm going to put some stringers on. Some white and black ones just to kind of give it a classic look. And keep it simple, the theme of simplicity. You don't want to cover too much up with opaque colors because you want it to kind of shine when you're done. You can get as involved as you want in this part. Alright, let's heat this guy up. Just simple wrap. Just going to melt this in and reshape it. At this point we're going to try to re-establish our focus on emptiness. Gatte, parasam, gatte, bodhi, swaha. Gatte, parasam, gatte, bodhi, swaha. A little off center, but it's okay. So this is a purba. Its purpose is used in a ritual for, at least in my interpretation, getting rid of ignorance, aversion, and attachment. And I use it in the following way. So at the very bottom here, where the bottom is top, who knows, you want to heat it up a little bit. And what you want to think about are any simple negativities that you just kind of want to get rid of out of your brain. You know, maybe there's something that's been bugging you. Just think about them, and when you put this purba in, you can use a pick, it doesn't matter, just as long as your focus is on just kind of getting rid of a negative thought. And so here we go. Just a small little dot. So that negativity now exists within the emptiness within the piece. And we're going to get rid of it a little later. So all I'm doing is a quick free rake. Maybe with a little bit more elaborate design, but it's just really simple. The point on this is process, not too much on technique, but you can do whatever you want. You just want to maintain some focus on keeping it symmetrical. And the other thing about this form, it's, you know, people talk about open as far as, you know, how the glass community, or how the world is starting to change. And so there's clear on both top and bottom so that you can see right through. The purpose for this will be a little obvious, more obvious later. I'm just doing a few little decorative patterns. I think I'll keep this one simple. Okay, so it's your simple rake. So while we're reheating this, I'm going to get back to emptiness, just kind of meditating on the emptiness portion of it. Gate, parasam gate, bari svaha. Gate, parasam gate, bari svaha. So any of the negativity that you put in with the purba is now basically subject to the fire and the emptiness inside. Gate, parasam gate, bari svaha. Gate, parasam gate, bari svaha. So we're still on emptiness. So on this part, you really want to concentrate on emptiness. So any of the negative thoughts that you have that were subject to the fire, so they went in on this side, and they're going to come out on that same side. Basically, the idea is that you're going to visualize them just burning up in the flame as this becoming emptiness, as this droops down a little bit. So you only want to heat up the first half. Gatte, pera, gatte. Some gatte body swaha. You want it to droop to the point where it's almost an egg. You don't want to go too far back, you just want the front. Because this is the whole critical aspect of the stone. So, in this part, here we go. See, we're almost at an egg shape. And any negativity that you had to put in there, mixed with emptiness, and now it's burned up. It's gone. It's the fire took care of it. So now we're going to concentrate on switching from emptiness to form. Gatte, gatte, para gatte, parasam gatte, body svaha. Now don't push too hard. Just kind of let the glass, you can tell by the top side, when that sets up, then it's halfway there. So we're now at the halfway point. Try to center it as much as possible, but that's basically it. If you wanted to do a little bit extra rake for an added decoration, then that's fine. So let it set up a second, and then we're just going to polish it out. So now we're in the stage where we're at form. We're concentrating on form because we've created half of what our intent was. That's nice and polished out. Just gonna let the graphite take some of the heat away. So now we're on form again, and we're going from the transition from form back into emptiness. And what's going to happen is the emptiness is basically going to appear right here as we pull the rod off. So we're still at form, but think about the direction towards emptiness. This is kind of a semi-cold warm. You don't want it to be a hot seal, you don't want it to be a cold seal. You want to be able to break it off without too much trouble. So stay centered, and now you're thinking a little bit more about emptiness. Now look at that point where you're focused your torch on, and that's form, but it's going to transition into emptiness as the flame cuts through it. Gatte, gatte, para gatte, parasam gatte, body svaha. Gatte, gatte, para gatte, parasam gatte, body svaha. Emptiness. Now this is back to emptiness. I'm going to pull a little bit of this out. Just eventually you'll get an eye for how much you pull out. You know, if you're a marble maker, you know that half a microgram will make the difference between a perfect marble and a ever so slightly wonky one. So now we're going to meditate a little bit on emptiness, and we're going to shape just this side up. I'm going to use a pretty strong heat, and what you're going to eventually have it look like is a cone on this side. You want it to be smooth. There's still some of the indents from the rakes that we did. Gatte, gatte, para gatte, parasam gatte, body svaha. Gatte, gatte, para gatte, parasam gatte, body svaha. Gatte, gatte, para gatte, parasam gatte, body svaha. Where it's supposed to go. This is a little tricky because sometimes if you heat it up too much, this other side that you punted up to will get a little flattened, and with practice you'll get a feel for how much heat to put in this guy. Now, alright, let's concentrate on emptiness, going back into form. Gate, parasum, bodhisattva. Just give it a little bit of push if you need to. You shouldn't have to give it too much. So hopefully we have symmetry on both sides. It tends to be a little bit hard to do, but as far as getting it to be perfect, perfection is in the perception of the observer. So at this point, we're at form. One of the things I learned recently from somebody who's been practicing, actually he's a Hindu, is that reality plus intent equals outcome. And so outcome in this case is that form. My intent was to create this stone, and the reality was the fire and the rods and everything else like that I have around me. And so that is it. And we'll put this in the kiln a little bit, or?
Yes. Kiln is at 1050.
Now, I don't know how you anneal your stuff, but it doesn't really matter. If you have a lot of really sparkly stuff in here, you could end up with a bit of a cracking, but just experiment. And so let it set up a minute. You don't want to get any dents on the bottom. Just let it cool down for a second. And then off it comes. Polish it up. These are actually pretty hardy. They're, to some extent, actually harder than marbles when they get annealed properly because of their ability to deflect force. So that should glow pretty nicely when it comes out of the kiln. As far as what the interior looks like, sometimes they cloud up a little bit. It just depends on the colors that you're using and the chemistry that the mix. Sometimes it just gets cloudy, and that can cause a nice effect. And sometimes it's just completely transparent with a little bit of sparkle. And I guess we'll see tomorrow when it's done. Or we could let it sit out if you want.
It's your call. Your art, man.
Well, if you want to take a picture of it today, then I don't really. Yeah, I can let it sit down. We'll let it be happy. We'll let it sleep in the kiln. You can always pull it out later if you want. And that's it. And we went from form into various stages of emptiness back and forth, and back eventually into form, which was your original intent.